In Boston, Jim Walsh, an international security analyst and new CNN contributor. Welcome to the program. What's happening inside these plants right now? They must be furiously trying to cool these fuel rods and prevent a meltdown of the core.
Exactly. That's precisely what they're doing, Christine. And as a result, they find themselves in a dilemma. As you pointed out, for the third reactor now, they've made the decision to dump seawater and boron into the reactor to try to cool it down because they can't get the cooling system to work, which is understandable. Two consequences of that. One, that plant is dead. It's never going to run again. But more importantly, they find themselves in a cycle where if they dump in seawater to cool it down, that seawater begins to boil, and then the vapor and pressure builds up within the reactor, and then they have to open it up and vent some of that material out into the atmosphere. And if any of the reactor fuel has melted, then that vapor will have some of those radioactive particulates in it. So they have to keep on dumping in water, then they have to keep on opening up the vessel to vent out the pressure because it builds up and over again, and now we're on number 3.
So the hydrogen gas explosion, that's what they're venting to prevent more explosions within these reactors, I assume. Now, what are they doing? Are they monitoring the air around so they can see what kind of nuclear material is in those vented gases and in those explosive gases, and what is that telling us?
Yeah, there are helicopters that are taking air samples. There are people on the ground taking samples. And what they're finding, unfortunately, is they're finding trace elements of cesium and iodine. Now, the only way you get cesium and iodine in an air sample is if the fuel has been compromised. If the water level in one or more of those reactors has gone down low enough that it's exposed to the air and begins to melt. And that's clearly what's happened. The government suspects that has happened in 2 of those reactors. And obviously they're worried it might be happening in a 3rd reactor, which is why we're getting the decision now to try to flood that one with seawater as well.
So flooding these with seawater, you say, shows just how kind of dire situation this is. There's nothing salvageable in these plants now. They're trying to shut them down. I mean, the earthquake is what caused the shutdown of the nuclear fission in the first place. But you can't just shut it off. And that's why you need the cooling, the external energy sources to keep this cooling process going. But then the tsunami buckled and hit that. I mean, it's almost a perfect list of what could go wrong here.
Yeah, it's a big 1-2 punch because normally if you're planning for this, you'd say, well, we're going to shut down the reactor because we anticipate an earthquake, but we'll have these backup electrical systems to be able to continue to run the cooling system. But then the tsunami takes that out. Then they brought in battery packs. Then they have, at least at some of the facilities, brought in external power sources. But once you do that, you discover that there are new problems, that the electrical cables are flooded, or that there are breaks in the pipes. You know, a set of problems, and they're having to do this all under crisis situation at multiple facilities, all at the same time. This is a huge challenge.
Jim, a 40-year-old facility, there are 23 facilities of this particular make in the United States. Do you think that there are questions or ramifications for these facilities elsewhere in the world, or is this just such a specific set of challenges that there are no conclusions to be drawn?
Well, I think, number one, we don't know, Christine, and that's the question that we're going to be asking in the months and years ahead as they do evaluation and try to figure out exactly what happened, see the lessons learned, and see if they can be applied elsewhere. The U.S. is unlikely to face an 8.9 magnitude earthquake, but certainly there are other countries, I think of Iran, for example, where there are nuclear power reactors built in earthquake zones. So I'm sure there will be lessons that we learn, but it's not over. You know, I still worry about the spent fuel ponds. There are still shoes left to drop here. But in every case, nuclear scientists and engineers are going to be studying this and then trying to improve things back here.